Hi, my name is Graham. I'm an arborist with the City of Abbotsford. That means I take care of the trees in the parks and along the streets throughout the city. I've been an arborist for well over a decade, and I've learned a few tips and tricks along the way, and I'd like to share those with you. So when you're pruning a tree, it's important to have a goal in mind before you start. Are you trying to raise up some lower branches so you can get a lawnmower through? Are you trying to clear some branches away from your driveway so you can park your motorhome? You maybe want to increase the tree's overall health and vigor, or maybe you just want to make the tree look pretty. Now, these are all really good goals, and outlining those before you start so you know which branches you want to remove before you start is important. Another important thing to consider is, are you capable of doing this job? If it's a very large tree or a large branch removal, you might want to consider hiring a professional to do this. Depends on what tools you have available and your own personal skill set and level of risk that you're willing to accept. So, proceed at your own risk. I have a handsaw that I use on a regular basis. You can buy a cheap $30 version, an expensive $70 version, but really one of these is you can do the majority of your pruning with a saw similar to this. You can buy it at any hardware store or garden center. Another thing that would be very useful is a set of hand pruners. You can buy cheap ones for $10 at Home Depot, or these nice ones which will last a lot longer, but for home pruning, the Home Depot version works just fine. Loppers are also very useful. I would prefer a saw over a lopper. Loppers are good for cutting branches between 1 to 2 inches, and but they do cause a little bit of damage to the tree when you do that. A saw makes a much nicer cut. So if you have a saw, that's a better idea. Pole pruner is the other tool for higher up branches. Again, we'll cut up to maybe 2 inches in diameter, and just take care, of course, you're cutting above your head. That branch is going to fall. Try not to get hit. So today we're going to be pruning this tree here. This is a horse chestnut. It's got nice pink flowers. Sometimes they have white flowers. Large, broad canopy, great shade, big leaves. I think they're a beautiful tree. This particular tree, we're going to lift up some of the lower branches to allow the mower to pass through easier. And I'm going to prune a little bit in the upper canopy for overall tree health, help the tree grow upright and nice and straight. So in order to do that, I'm going to cut some branches, and I'm going to show you how to cut those branches safely and with the least damage to the tree. Every time you cut a branch, every time you cut a tree, every time you do anything to a tree, you're damaging it. And so we want to make sure we do it in the way that damages the tree the least. So you might want to make a nice, clean, proper cut. It's going to allow the tree to remain healthy and recover faster from what you've done. So we're going to be providing some lawnmower clearance for this tree. That means removing this branch and some of the secondary branches that come off of this one here. First off, I'm going to remove this branch, and I'm going to remove it incorrectly. I'm going to show you what happens when you don't make a proper cut and the damage it can cause to the tree. And then this branch I will remove correctly, and showing you the proper place to make your final cut. So if you just cut through the top of the branch, that happens. It snaps down. And in worst case scenario, it peels all the way down and into the remaining part of the tree, damaging the tree for the rest of its life. Here, let's cut this one off next. So what you do is you cut underneath first, about a quarter of the way through the tree. So now we're going to remove this branch correctly. We're going to use a method called the 3-point cut. First, we're going to make one cut, which I've already started here, about a quarter of the way through the tree. And then farther out from the stem, we're going to do that again, about a quarter to a third of the way through the tree. And then we're going to cut from above, farther out, about 1 inch, 2 inches away from this cut. You see how it snapped down to this cut and then broke free, not damaging the rest of the branch or the stem. This cut here is in case this fails and it starts to peel, it won't peel past that nick right there. So we're going to use that 3-point cut whenever a branch is too heavy to easily control with your hand. If it's a branch you can easily support, say this one here, you can just cut straight through it. You don't need to use the snap. But in this case, that branch was way too heavy for me to control and would have fallen and, like I said, like this one, probably damaged the tree. Okay, so now that we've removed the bulk of these branches, we have to cut these stubs back. We don't want to leave a stub like this on a tree. It's not healthy for the tree. It leads to odd growth and just doesn't look right. There's a region right here called the collar. It's a little bit of a swelling at the base of the branch. And that collar is full of chemicals that help the tree to react to having that branch removed. Picture a tree losing a branch in the forest. It rips out here and the tree is ready to deal with it. If you cut it off and leave it up here, those chemicals aren't up there and the tree can't react properly. Similarly, if you cut too flush, that's called a flush cut, and you cut into the collar, you're removing those chemicals. You want to cut outside of this swelling, okay? That's really, really important to get the right angle. So you find that angle, you find where the edge of that swelling is. When in doubt, cut at about, if this is 90 degrees to the branch, cut at about 45 degrees if you can't find the collar. And then you're going to remove that. Be careful at the end of your cut. Right here, if you just push through with the saw, the bark will tear. So you just very fine little cut there. There you go. And that's a good angle. That's what you want to see. That's a nice collar. That's called a collar cut. So one of the things to think about when you're pruning a tree is you need to establish where the main leader of the tree is, where the main trunk of the tree is, okay? So on this one, you follow it up. This is the main trunk. It's pretty clear in this one. Follow it all the way up there. Eventually, often trees start spreading out and they lose that leader. Now, the same principle applies to each branch, okay? So this main branch has a main leader to it, okay? It's just like the stem, it's just on an angle, okay? And these are branches coming off the main stem. These are branches coming off the main stem here. So as we were discussing, this is the main leader for this branch. And this is a secondary branch, or we call it a lateral coming off of that. This will have a collar where we cut it, as we discussed earlier, okay? Because it's a branch coming off. You're removing, if I were to cut this one off, you'd be removing the whole branch and there's a collar there. Now the other kind of cut you can make, it's called a reduction cut. So if you follow this out, follow it out, here's the main leader here, okay? This is a branch coming off of it. If we want to reduce the length of this, we can reduce the main leader. And if we do that, we have to cut it back to a lateral or a side branch, okay? We don't want to just cut it in the middle and leave a stub like that. It confuses the tree, doesn't know how to react, doesn't know where to grow. So we want to make a cut right there, and the tree will continue to grow along the branch that you've left. Also, that looks quite natural. You can barely tell I cut anything. And my goal when I prune a tree is to make it look as natural as possible. When I leave, I really hope that people can't tell that I actually pruned the tree. You want to create a natural looking tree. And by leaving branches to take over instead of stubs, you've done that. Another valuable piece of information to have when you're deciding on how to prune a tree is to know, how does a tree grow? And I'll be honest, I didn't know until I was about 30. I just informed my wife last night when I was going over what I was going to talk about today, and she's in her mid-30s. Most people don't know. Most people think a tree grows from the ground up. They think it keeps coming up out of the ground like grass. And so that means over time, this branch would get higher and higher and higher. And that's not the case. This branch will remain at this height for the rest of the life of the tree. Trees get fatter, that's one way they grow, and they get longer. They grow from the tips. So at the tip of any branch, right here, it's full of a bunch of chemicals that allow that branch to get longer. So branches get fatter, the tips get longer. They don't grow from the base. If you made a line right there on that branch, it would be there forever. It wouldn't move out with the age of the tree. Okay, so now that you know a little bit about how trees grow, it can inform your pruning style a little bit. This is why we don't cut the end of a branch off very often. We always want to cut it back to a lateral or a side branch to take over. Okay, there always has to be a tip left intact on that branch for that branch to keep growing. If you cut off all the tips off of a branch, the tree gets very confused. It needs to know which direction to grow. And when you prune, what you're essentially doing is telling that tree, grow this way, grow that way, don't grow this way. And you want to give it clear instructions. So after you've made all this mess, cut all these branches, put them on the ground, you need to know what to do with them. At the city of Abbotsford, you can put them out with your green waste at the side of your curb on garbage pickup day. Needs to be bundled in bundles of 1 meter long and 60 centimeters wide. That's roughly 3 feet long and 2 feet wide. And you bundle it up with some organic twine, something that's going to break down in the compost. No nylon, no polypropylene. Okay, jute would work, something like that. And just put it out on the side of your curb on garbage day. So for homeowners, putting 1 or 2 bundles of branches out once or twice a month is not a big deal, but at the city, we produce way too many branches to be able to deal with it that way. So we have this chipper. We chip all the debris that we make. We take the chips, we dump them at the yard, we compost them down, and then we put them around our new trees and even some of our older trees in parks to help keep down weeds, to help bring some more organic matter into the tree's root zone, and to keep the mowers away, and most importantly, to help retain moisture. It's a huge advantage to a tree to have a mulch ring around it. So you can do that at home with any kind of mulch that you have. Don't use grass clippings, but raked up leaves, wood chips, composted bark mulch, anything like that. Just keep all the grass and weeds away from the base of the tree, and a layer of organic mulch will go a long way in tree health. There you go, Pruning Trees 101.